In this episode, I will explain to you why I've learned that the 35mm lens is the perfect lens for travel photography.
Adorama TV presents Exploring Photography with Mark Wallace.
Hi everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. I'm Mark Wallace. Well, I've been traveling the world for about 13 months now. I haven't been back to the United States in that entire time. And a lot of people have asked me on Facebook and through my blog, can you tell us what's working and what isn't working? Well, absolutely. That's what this episode is about. What have I learned in my past year, a little over a year of travel and travel photography? Well, I started shooting with a DSLR system. I had a Canon 5D Mark III with a few lenses. And about 5 or 6 months ago, I switched over to a Rangefinder camera. And so what I wanted to do is see, well, did that switch work for me and which lenses are working for me and what worked with the Canon system and what didn't, all that kind of stuff. And so the way I wanted to approach this is to do something that Jared Platt taught me how to do, and that is to dive into Lightroom and look at the statistics and find out what the numbers are telling me. And if you don't know how to do that, you can check out an episode that I previously made all about metadata and how to learn from it. Well, let's figure out what I've learned from my travel. The first thing I wanted to know is which lenses do I tend to favor? Which ones work best for me? And my criteria for judging that was when I throw pictures into Lightroom, of all the pictures that I put in there, which ones or how many am I flagging? How many am I picking saying, yeah, this is a winning photo? So I looked in Lightroom and I looked at all the lenses, and you can see that the data shows that the 21mm, the 16 to 35mm lens, the 24 to 70 at the wide side of that lens, my success rate is about 11 or 12%. In other words, I'm getting more good shots out of my wide angle lenses than I am with my telephoto lenses. At the 135 and the 70 to 200 side, at the long end of that lens, my success rate drops to about 8%. So wide angle lenses for travel photography are clearly better by about a 4% margin, which isn't huge, but I learned a little bit more as I looked more closely at this data. The other thing I wanted to know was, let's take a look at the Canon versus the Leica argument. And don't get caught up on Leica. It could be any rangefinder or mirrorless camera, a Sony A7R, it could be a Fujifilm, any one of the many awesome cameras that they have. It could be anything. So I chose a Leica, but it could be any mirrorless camera. So a lightweight, small camera versus a DSLR camera. When I looked at the data of all the images I shot with my Canon system versus the rangefinder system, they were equal in terms of winning percentage. In other words, about 10% or exactly 10% of the images that I shot with both systems came out as winners. So they're on equal footing as far as the image quality and the images that I liked. Now, I didn't compare the Leica versus the Canon, so it's not that comparison, but just looking at equally, I liked about the same amount of photos. But one of the things that I really hoped for in a smaller camera, and I talked a lot about this in a previous episode, was that the larger system, I had no camera in hand. In other words, I just wasn't shooting a lot because my camera was always in my bag or I'd leave it at the hotel. So my hope was with a smaller camera like this that I would take it with me a lot more. And so I wanted to see, am I shooting more? And if so, does that translate into more winning shots? And absolutely, I am shooting a lot more. And when I looked looked closely at the data, I see that on my DSLR camera, my Canon camera, I was taking about 44 winning photos per month. And with my rangefinder, I'm shooting at about 75 winning photos per month. That's a 170% increase in winning photos. Now, because both of them have the same success rate, all that means is that I'm shooting more pictures with my small camera than I am with my large camera, which is a sort of a no-brainer. Of course, if you take a small camera, you're going to use it more than a big camera that you have to carry around. And it might also be that I'm sort of have new toy joy, and so I'm just using this a lot more than my other camera. I don't know, but the data says that I'm shooting with this camera more than my larger camera. All right, well, now that we know that, my question is, well, which lenses are the best? We already know that I'm favoring wide-angle lenses, which was sort of a surprise to me because for years I've been saying long lenses, long lenses, long lenses. Well, let's look and see. So in both systems, the Canon system and my rangefinder system, I used, if you take everything and put it together and average it, or not average, just add it up, 51% of all the photos were shot with a 35mm range and wider. So I looked at my 24-70 and said how many of those were 35 or wider. My 16-35, I added those in there, and then my 21 and my 35mm Leica lenses. And so 51%. But I wanted to see how exactly that broke down just looking at my rangefinder camera. So when I look at that, it's still about the same. About 54% of the shots are shot with a 35mm lens or wider, except I didn't have this 35mm lens until about 3 months ago. And so I was very curious, and I wanted to see what happened 3 months ago when I added this lens. Now the reason I bought this lens was because I was shooting a lot with my 21mm lens, but just everyday shooting it felt just too wide. There was too much in the frame, and so I'd go back and forth between that and my 50mm lens, my standard lens. But the 50 felt a little bit too long, a little bit too close, a little bit too cropped. And so I just wasn't happy with either one of those. And so I read a lot of blogs and did a lot of research, and people swear by the 35mm lens. Steve Huff Photo is one of those guys that says if you just shoot with this and nothing else, it will dramatically increase your skills. And I wanted to see, well, maybe that's true. So I bought my 35mm lens, and wow, what a change. We look at the data. After I bought the 35, 79% of all of my photos were shot with the 35 or the 21. So it's a dramatic shift between these lenses and these lenses. So almost exclusively, I'm shooting wide. Why is that? Well, the 35 is just the right porage. It's not too wide, it's not too long. You can stick it on your lens, you can carry it around. It's very, very small. At night, if you don't need a lens hood, you can see that this is a very compact, small lens. It's not intimidating. It works for portrait photography. You can shoot scenics with it. You can do anything with this lens. In fact, I can take all these lenses and leave them at home in a bag and just use the 35, and I will be successful. And I wanted to look at the data and see what it said. And of the two lenses, sure enough, 66% of them were shot with this 35mm lens. So the takeaway of the things that I've learned in my last 13 months is this. You should travel with a small camera that has a 35mm lens because you're going to shoot more with it. It's a lens that you can do almost anything you want with, and because they're so readily available for all different brands, Sony, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Fujifilm, you name it, they all have 35mm lenses. They're all very affordable, all the way up to skyrocket high prices, but you can get low light performance, you can get scenic performance, they're really sharp, they're awesome. You can get old 35 vintage lenses, you can get brand new lenses. They are everywhere, and so what I've learned is the 35mm lens coupled with a mirrorless camera is absolutely the way to go. So if you're looking for a solution, a one lens solution or a starting point, get a mirrorless camera, get a 35mm lens, and go for it. That's what I've learned in my last 13 months. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Exploring Photography. Don't forget, there's a ton of information on Adorama TV. It's absolutely free, and all you need to do is subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. So click on the subscribe button, and you can look back at past episodes like how to learn from your metadata and do the kind of number crunching that I just did, as well as shooting with wide-angle lenses and all kinds of things. It's absolutely free, so check that out. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you again next time.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy-to-use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.